Firstly, Matt, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your role here at Cambridge United?
Matt Walker, obviously, head of performance, look after everything relating to conditioning, medical analysis at the club, oversee the staff that look after that from first team all the way down to under 9s.
Okay, brilliant. And with the U's last play in competitive football on March the 7th, how have the players coped during furlough, and were they given any specific programmes to work on, ready for a return to football?
Well, initially we didn't know how long it was going to be, so we had the sort of call on the Friday before, or the week after the Orient game, so no one was really sure what that was going to look like, so really the boys were given a 2-week programme to keep themselves ticking over, and then obviously things became a bit clearer that things were going to shut down completely, so we tried to keep that competitive element because there still wasn't really a start date back, so we just set the boys challenges really, so we had some running based challenges, some physical challenges, so they could keep in touch with each other, and we had that sort of going along, and then once furlough had started, basically gave the boys time to shut down and to have a bit of a rest really. The start date for pre-season wasn't clear, there was a lot of uncertainty and a fair bit of anxiety really, so our focus was more about keeping the players' mindset engaged and taking away their daily routine. They're creatures of habit usually. They get their sort of 6 weeks off season usually to go on holiday, have a bit of a blowout and then get ready again. It's usually quite a short turnaround really in the off season, so this is like something no one else has ever experienced, and not just us, lots of other clubs as well, so try and gauge from colleagues at other clubs what they were doing. The restart with the Premier League and the playoffs at our division and everywhere in between with the Championship gave us a chance to speak to other colleagues at clubs to see how they've interpreted the new protocols and what the challenges were, so we had a bit of a head start really coming back for ourselves. Once the 1st of August sort of came about that was going to be our start back date, we were able to sort of get back in touch with the players and build them up progressively from there. But yeah, it was loads of challenges, more than just the physical challenges.
So how would you say the pandemic's affected your preparation for this pre-season and season compared to normal pre-seasons?
Obviously the longest break the players have had, bar none really. Some players went into the lockdown injured. Carl had his operation on his shoulder. Luke went into lockdown with his ankle problem. So physically, the medical staff weren't able to get hands-on. A lot of stuff was done remotely. Those staff have done an excellent job. Tom at the time and Mikey coming back. Have done a brilliant job of getting those boys back into the physical state they needed to be when we could rejoin the group, literally remotely in the odd session here and there. So I would say that was the biggest challenge and the injured players getting frustrated that they couldn't get their daily work done. The second challenge was obviously that all the boys live in different locations, so yes, they could go out and do some daily exercise, but we'd given out some equipment out of the gym. Some players didn't have ability to do that, to use that to store it, so some did have, some didn't. So when we're prescribing programmes, really we had to look individually at what the players were able to do, where the best bit of grass locally to them was. Gyms were obviously closed, so we couldn't access that, so it was a tough challenge in many ways, but actually a really good challenge. I think you could look at it two ways. You could feel sorry for yourself and see it as, I'm not going to be able to do this, and look at all the things you can't do. We try to look at it as a big opportunity.
Yeah, important to be proactive sort
really
of thing.
Really proactive, yeah, you're right. So we just try to be one step ahead, and actually usually we send the players away and get in touch with them in the off season towards restart. This year actually we probably had a bit more contact, just staying in touch on the phone really. How are you getting on with this, how are you getting on with that?
Did you use Zoom at all?
Did we?
Did you use Zoom at all to keep in touch?
We used Zoom a little bit, but we used different apps like Strava, so they could log sessions, and then that just started a
so you could still get the data sort of thing as well?
Yeah, we just had an idea of what they were doing. Obviously, a lot of that was them doing it on their own. Well, all of it was doing it on their own. And so when we came back on Saturday the 1st, we had some idea what they were going to come back in state when we tested, but to be fair to them, they worked really hard. I know everyone will just think that is just something being said, but they worked really hard to get themselves in a good state so we could hit the ground running really.
And how did that first session back go? Sort of thing, what do you do on that first session? Obviously there's the dreaded bleep test and stuff.
Yeah, we changed it a little bit around this year because just to be mindful of what the players haven't been able to do. So we just got some baseline fitness measures, really real straightforward stuff, nothing crazy. The difference was we had to do the small group for training, so we can only have 5 of them on site at a time. So the day was quite long for staff, quite short for players. Sort of had them on the premises for about an hour and a half. So we did that for the first week, really, for 5-6 days, and then we didn't get back all together, weren't able to get them all back together under new protocols until the end of the first week. So they've had to get into the habit of having temperature checks, having swab tests down there.
Yeah, I was going to say, how's the scheduling gone and organisation in terms of
it's
preparation?
just made your organisation have to be absolutely perfect. We've used a new app this year called Kairos, which is like a scheduling app and appointments app. That's actually been perfect because players need to know what they need to bring. We haven't been able to use any indoor facilities. Starting to sort of creep a little bit inside in very, very small numbers, but the gym's been outside, they've been changing, sat on a chair outside. We played Gillingham the other day, we got changed in a concourse by a burger bar, so on a plastic garden chair, no showers. So these are all things the players are going to have to adapt to while the ruling is as it is, so that we can play. And to be fair, they've been pretty on board with it. There's been very few gripes, they're just desperate to be back, so whatever things they have to do to mean that we can be back, they've got on board with them. We haven't had any symptoms, any cases, any problems. They've been terrific.
So what sort of protocols have you had to put in place? Well, I mean, what do the players have to do before they even start a training session?
So the first day back, they all literally sat in their cars and waited until they were swab tested. We had to wait for the results of those to come back. They could, with minimal contact with anyone really, in small groups with the testing, and then it's a case of reporting any symptoms. So there's an online questionnaire that they need to update with Mikey, any changes in their symptoms, temperature checks, sanitisation stations everywhere before and after using equipment, wiping down mats, wiping down gym equipment. So yeah, it's just changed the way we work really, but like I say, they've got on board with it.
How often do the players have to be tested?
So the EFL protocol is 3 times in the pre-season, and then temperature check and literally updating Mikey if there's any change in their symptoms. But we've been pretty good so far. Yeah, everything's been good. The biggest challenge for that sense is in the medical room for players getting treatment. It's very much schedule based. Mikey's got full PPE on. Players are in masks because he is physically contacting with them. So that's been tough for him and therapists that we've got in just to organise the day. You can be less ad hoc really, so you need to be very flexible but very fixed between the two things. So.
And obviously, how did you find lockdown and obviously preparation for the season yourself?
Tough initially, I think, for everyone because I'm a parent of 2 and your mindset is very much looking after at home first, isn't it? But also you do feel a little bit paternal with the players, especially the younger ones. People like Dimmy, he's stuck in England on his own, so just down the road from where I live locally. So your concern is for them and their welfare as well, making sure they're okay. So yeah, I'm pleased I don't have to teach fractions every day to my daughter, but everything else has been good. I think everyone just wanted that date to come back, however far in the distance it was. There was obviously people anxious about redundancies and no one was sure what sort of club we'd come back to, if we were coming back to a club in the initial bit, but I think the club have been fantastic the way they've looked after everyone during lockdown, so full credit to them.
So talk us about a typical pre-season. Obviously there's you're looking at sort of data on their weight. When they come back, you're kind of doing tests. What sort of tests do you do on the players? How do you kind of record the data?
Yeah, so some of the testing is to see what state they're in, and some of it is in case they get injured in the future. We've got some baseline of where their sort of start point was. So we'll look at power, speed, agility, aerobic endurance, some movement screening. None of them would be perfect movers, but we're not trying to make them perfect movers. We're trying to reduce the chance of injury, which obviously as soon as the game started in the last couple of weeks, we've had some collision-based injuries, unavoidable as much as you can, but it's the soft tissue ones we want to try and avoid as much as possible. So that's really just progressively moving them through, and really you want everyone to come back somewhere near towards their maximum, but the biggest thing really is everyone coming back. The gap between the best player and the least good player is small. They can program the training from there. It's much easier rather than having to cater for some who are flying and some that are a bit slower behind. Our group were very close to that top.
Who would you say is the fittest player at the moment at the club?
Oh, a difficult one. Lots of different capabilities really. So some of the younger boys in the aerobic endurance were off the scale really. They were, young lad Liam Bennett, who we've taken from Sudbury, that's going to start the season with Barry. He's got a phenomenal aerobic endurance, so that even took a few players, a few senior ones by surprise. We've got lots of strong players, we're lucky in that sense, so lots of nimble players.
Who's the quickest player in the team?
Recorded on GPS, at the minute you're probably looking at Dunks, Kyle, Nibsing, but a few of the others have got more in them. Harry's very quick. There's Knowlesy, Leon. We've got some players blessed with.
How do you kind of record the GPS, and do you actually record data on a match day of the player when he's playing?
Yeah, so they wear the vests in training and match day, and then a new feature that we're allowed this year is to have that live feed onto the bench, so you can give the coaching staff some sort of objective feedback really about whether a player's tiring, how much more they think they've got left in the tank. That's harder at the start of the year, especially with new players, because you don't know what their physical maximums are. Players that have been here some time, like Greg, Harrison, Liam, you've got a real clear idea of where their fatigue levels are, and I think that's going to be a real test for all of us this year, with the schedule being as it is, Saturday, Tuesdays. We're going to play lots of League Cup games if we end up getting through those rounds in the early part, lots of other cup games, lots of league games, with a smaller squad, so that's going to be a big challenge to keep players fresh and available, which is the best ability really, availability. We just want to try and make as many available as possible, so Mark's got as many to choose from as he can.
And how have you found working under Mark? Obviously you two know each other, you've both been at the club a long time. Obviously you started out as the Centre of Excellence manager in 2008.
Yeah.
Mark was in the Centre of Excellence for a long time, and we might as well call him Mr. Cambridge United. I think he's done everything.
He has, yeah.
How have you found pre-season with Mark?
Yeah, as you'd expected really, very organised. He's really clear on what he wants to do, how he wants to get there, so we all just fitted around that really. He's got a real clear way how he wants to set the team out, similar to how we obviously ended before the shutdown. So that makes all our lives really easy of what we're trying to achieve in and around that, supporting that, and what information he wants to know and what he's happy for us to know and not pass on, just to keep working away on our own. Gary's obviously come in with huge experience, especially at this level of players and teams and playing styles and what wins games at this level, so that's been really good to learn from again, someone different. So yeah, it's a good group. Barry and Mark Bunn being ex-pros around the place as well, in the coaching staff is a real
good for like the younger players as well.
Yeah, real good balance, so they've got a bit of everything they can lean on and lots of different information. I think that's really key, rather than sort of a fixed way of preparing the younger ones as well, and the senior ones. Joe Ironside, if he can learn stuff off Barry, that's brilliant. Barry's scored lots of goals in his career and similar type of player. So yeah, there's lots of good.
And talking to the new signings, how have the lads settled in and how have they found things?
It's been good, yeah, really good. Different types of people. It's nice to see people like Paul Mullin come back as well, so I sort of count him as a new one, but one that was here. Yeah, really good. They've made a really good first impression, and they've worked hard so far, so we're moving in the right direction.
Lovely, thanks Matt.
No problem.